Welcome back to Critically Incorrect, your weekly gaming podcast. I'm your host, Brandon. Our online here today with Charlie, if you wanted to say hi.
Hello.
So yeah, pretty exciting week for the gaming industry. We got some good news. Nothing like crazy, but a good chunk of news to talk to you all today about. So look forward to that. But yeah, with that being said, let's just jump right into how we always start off these podcasts with Charlie. In the last week, what have you been playing?
Yeah, I've played a decent mix of stuff again this week. I did go ahead and finish the Dying Light the following expansion. I think it took me like 5 hours maybe to beat. I kind of was just like forcing myself to do it. Like it got a bit better towards the end for me personally, but the first couple of hours were kind of sluggish. And I definitely preferred the majority of the main game just because the parkour elements of Dying Light is what I enjoyed the most, and there's not much of that in the DLC. But I did actually enjoy the story. I think more in the expansion. I know Warlock was like complained about it in the Discord, and he was like, "Whoever told you that the DLC is like better than the main game is wrong." But personally, I enjoyed the story. It was kind of wacky and kind of weird, and the ending's a bit odd. But honestly, like I kind of like how weird it gets towards the end. I think it kind of works. So yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. But I wouldn't say it's like required to play. Although it does kind of wrap up the story of the first game quite neatly. So if you want to know like how the story ends for that character and that world, then it's definitely worth at least reading about or watching some videos on. Just because it is quite a good wrap up for that story before going into two. So I did play that. And then the other game I've played a decent chunk of this week is Deep Rock Galactic. I installed it on the Windows Store because it's crossplay with Xbox, and it's on Game Pass. I just like moved my save over to get it working. So I've been playing that with some mates, which has been a lot of fun. Getting like a 4-player group together and playing through some of that because I've only played bits and pieces like with you, Brandon,
Mm-hmm.
and a few of my other mates. I haven't played a ton of it, so it's been nice to play a few hours the past few nights, having a go at that, and then just a little bit of VR here and there. I think I played like an hour or two of Beat Saber over the past like week. They did actually. I completely forgot to add it on like the gaming news. It's a small thing, but they did kind of tease some
There's like
kind of update
scattered
coming out
blocks,
soon with
right?
like the new blocks, and then also this weird new like slice kind of thing where there'll be like a line that you see and you have to follow it with your blade, which is pretty cool. So I'm interested to see how that new stuff works in the new tracks. I did see they're not planning to update the old tracks with that stuff, but hopefully we get like a big new like free OST when that stuff launches relatively soon. I imagine next month. But that'll be cool. I'm trying to think if there's been anything else. And then a little bit of Valorant here or there. Much like last week, just playing a few matches. I'm getting slightly better at it now that I've been playing it a bit more consistently. But I've been enjoying a bit of that. Um, yeah, that is it. I didn't play any more Horizon, so yeah, that is it for me this week.
Right on. I saw that the developers like today announced for Deep Rock Galactic that the Scout's gonna be getting like a new weapon, that crossbow,
Okay.
which is pretty cool. The devs still working on that. I played a bit of that over the past week, of course, myself. I played a bit of Horizon, not as much as I'd like. I only played a few more hours of that. I've mainly been like my free time the last few days watching an anime, Tokyo Revengers. I guess I'll just mention that. Yeah, really, really good story. Story is like the most important thing for like an anime for me. So, like if it has a good story, I'll binge the hell out of it. So that's what I've been doing for that. Yeah. Besides that, not much else. I am looking forward to this weekend because I'm gonna probably go through, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna play through Uncharted 4 like in full because I don't think I have enough time to warrant that. But I definitely want to check it out in 60 FPS and see how this new upgraded look at the game looks for both Lost Legacy and Uncharted 4. But yeah, I guess that segues into the releases this week because Uncharted Legacy: A Thieves Collection. When you're watching this, it's out now, but the day we're recording this is Thursday, so technically tomorrow for us, Charlie and I. Yeah, out on PS5, and of course the PC version is still to come in the coming months. Zenith the Last City is a new release as well this week. This is on VR platforms, so PSVR, Steam VR, and Quest. Yeah, it's like an MMO kind of like game. I saw some blog posts about it. It looked pretty interesting. I think I've seen this game before in some sort of event or something like that. It looks familiar. But yeah, apparently the game's getting good reviews, so if you're into VR, check that out. And then speaking of VR, Wander VR is also out. This is out on Steam VR. Charlie, I was talking to him about it earlier. He said it's like an escape room, like VR game. So yeah, if you're into that, that is also out this week. But yeah, besides that, nothing really else. That being said, we're like on the final week of January, so yeah, next week is going to be the start of the February rush. So yeah, brace and enjoy the free time while you can, because yeah, February is coming. Anyways, let's get into the gaming news this week, and we'll start off with a pretty big, exciting announcement. And to keep up the VR discussion, The Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners has announced a sequel. Essentially they're calling it like the second chapter of the game. It's essentially like, based on the wording, it's a sequel. It's a new game, or at least like more story content. Obviously, Saints and Sinners is a very critically acclaimed VR title. It's one of my favorite VR titles for sure. Just the physics in that game and yeah, just everything about the combat. It's such a really good Walking Dead VR game. Yeah, just one of the best out there. So it's very nice to see a sequel announced. Charlie, what'd you think about that announcement?
Yeah, I'm glad to see it's been announced. It makes a lot of sense, right? Like you said, it's critically acclaimed. Did really well for them. They've done a few updates to it since launch. They did like a story DLC last year, with like some new weapons and stuff. So it makes sense that they're going to be continuing with this one. Like you, I think it's a sequel, although they've been very weird about the wording. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it's like a standalone expansion type thing, right? Where it won't be full price because it's kind of using a lot of the mechanics, but it's new content. But either way, I'm excited to see more about this. I do need to go back and play the first one because I think I've only played like 6 hours of that game, and I've restarted it like twice because I remember at launch, I think they've changed it a lot since then, but there was a lot of balancing issues with like health items when the game first came out. And
Yeah.
I remember I was really struggling like a few days in to find anything to heal up. So my guy was just coughing all the time and it was like really frustrating. So I restarted it a few weeks back actually, but I just haven't had the time to play it because I enjoy playing VR games stood up, and after being at work, I don't really want to stand up for like an hour or two playing like Walking Dead, right? So I do want to go back and play it, and hopefully I'll get around to that before Chapter 2 comes out. But it's cool to see that we are getting another one.
Yeah, ditto on that. Yeah, VR is really hard to play after like a long day at work, so I totally understand that. Um, Yeah, I really just can't wait for PSVR 2 so I can actually play more VR games because I would have beaten The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners if it wasn't for the fact that the Quest was just an uncomfortable headset to wear. So I could only really play that game in like 30-minute chunks or an hour chunks before like it started straining my head and it was like uncomfortable to play. So yeah, hopefully this will be out and somewhat playable on the new headset when that comes out. Um, yeah, very exciting announcement. The wording was really weird. Chapter 2 makes it seem like it could be either way, as Charlie said. So hopefully they'll clarify that in the future. But yeah, exciting nonetheless. Anyways, we recently talked about Respawn here on the podcast, and EA did like straight up decided just to announce like all the projects that they're working on via a blog post. I think it was like early this week, maybe Monday or Tuesday, that like Blizzard and like EA announced like new games as via blog posts. It was kind of odd, but good for us because this news is out there, right? So let's start with Respawn. They essentially announced that they're working on 3 Star Wars games at the moment: a Jedi Fallen Order 2, a new FPS, and a strategy game. So obviously the strategy game one's a little bit weird because you wouldn't really consider Respawn like really a developer that focuses on those kind of games, but nonetheless they're working on one. Jedi Fallen Order 2 is what we expect. We already talked about rumors about that game. The new FPS one is weird to me because obviously Jeff Grubb recently just talked about how that they're doing like a new IP that's in early prototype phase of a new a shooter that's not related to Titanfall or Star Wars. So they could be having like 4 projects in development alongside, of course, Apex Legends, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, all 3 of these games, of course, are going to be under the Star Wars umbrella. They announced it as 3 games under Star Wars by Respawn. I'm excited for definitely Jedi Fallen Order 2 and the new FPS. Obviously, Jedi Fallen Order 2 is a sequel to a game I loved, and then a new FPS. That's Respawn's really like golden, genre to develop their games, and like they're the kings of FPS. So I know for sure that game will be good. Strategy game, I mean, just gotta wait and see, right? Like I wouldn't think of Respawn as a good developer for that, but like they're still talented, so I imagine the game's gonna be good nonetheless. But yeah, Charlie, what'd you think about those 3 games they're working on?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really weird way to do it, right? Like, especially with like Star Wars Celebration right around the corner. Like, it's kind of weird that you would just announce this here. But either way, it's really cool news. Obviously, Jedi 2 makes a lot of sense, right? Like, Fallen Order did great for EA. There was a lot of rumors that they were working on a second one. And it's very likely that it's either out end of this year, early next year. So, makes sense they've mentioned it here. Hopefully, we'll see that in the next few months, presumably on May 4th would be my guess, is when we get a reveal of that. The new FPS for me personally is really exciting because there hasn't been like a proper like full on FPS Star Wars game in a long time. Obviously, we have had the two Battlefront games, right? But to be honest, I play those in third person. That's just how I've always played Battlefront. It's the superior way to play those games. So I don't really count those too much. And then the strategy game is an interesting one. I do know they've hired a lot of people that worked on like the original XCOM games from way back when. So it seems that it's going to be something in the form of XCOM style of combat, which is interesting. I did mention it on Discord, but there was some rumors a few years back that they were working on like a Titanfall strategy game. So I wonder if maybe that when that got canned, they kind of showed that to the guys at Lucasfilm and were just like, "Hey, we've got this Titanfall thing that we're not working on. We could maybe repurpose it for Star Wars," and they like the look of it. That's entirely possible. They did do like a Titanfall mobile game that was strategy, and then when Apex came out, they kind of said they were working on other Titanfall things, and there was a rumor that one of those could be a strategy game. So um, I wouldn't be surprised if it got repurposed, but I don't know what the new FPS would be. It could be a whole number of things, right? Because there's so much to pull from. I think personally, I would love to see like a new Imperial Commando or Republic Commando game. Those games are well, Republic Commando was great. They never got to do an Imperial Commando game. It got cancelled. But those are some really good FPS single player games with cool squad based like tactics. And I would love to see something like that from Respawn with a really cool campaign, some fun multiplayer. Um, but yeah, Imperial Commando would be like an awesome game, and it's an IP that would make a lot of sense to bring back because it's one of those that's kind of like a cult classic. So it'd be cool to see that one come back. But it could be anything, right? Like it could be a bounty hunter game, it could be an empire driven game, it could be a rebel thing. So who knows? Either way, it's really cool. It's I think the most interesting takeaway though is that DICE are probably not gonna work on Star Wars now. DICE are obviously in like a weird spot right now, but it just this like is the final nail in the coffin for me that I don't think Battlefront 3, if it ever happens, will ever be from DICE. Um, but yeah, it's a shame they won't get to do that. But at the same time, I totally get it. Makes sense to put all their cards in Respawn because they haven't done any wrong so far. So yeah.
Yeah, exciting. A lot of Star Wars projects. This and like the Quantum Dream game and the various other projects also in development, like the Knights of the Old Republic remake. After the new trilogy, still going strong, still going strong. Yeah. Anyways, another game that was announced via blog post came in the form of Blizzard. Blizzard essentially just announced that they're working on a new survival game for PC and consoles. Essentially, it was like a hiring post, or like, do you want to work on a unannounced, survival game? Yeah, join our team. Apparently, this project is like has a lot of potential. I saw like a tweet by Jason Schreier that essentially said that like even the most like gruntled employees at Blizzard still like claimed that this team was like really good or had some unique like things going on or unique dynamics that's like very refreshing or something like that. So yeah, pretty exciting. You wouldn't really think of Blizzard working on like a survival game But like it kind of makes sense because Blizzard works on like every other genre that kind of like you associate with PC, right? You got like the FPS, the MMO, the survival game kind of like is up their alley if they want to dominate like the PC landscape, right? So makes sense, makes sense. Very exciting stuff. Based on the wording though, this game's definitely probably years away. I saw like an artwork that they had put up for it, and it looks pretty cool. There's like a destroyed city, right? And there's like these two people that are like going through a portal to like this magical like world or something like that. So if that concept is what they're going for, that definitely looks pretty enticing. Yeah, looking forward to seeing more of that. So what do you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, it's cool to see that they are working on something new outside of Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2, right? Because that's obviously the main two games we know they're working on right now. I'm personally not like a big survival game player, but I really enjoy Blizzard's worlds. They've got really good world building and lore. So it being set in a brand new universe is really cool to see. Um, I wouldn't expect it for a long, long time. Blizzard like to keep things cooking in the oven until they're ready. So, who knows when we'll see it and where we'll see it. I know they announced it for PC and console, but when asked, like, is it Xbox exclusive, they didn't say anything because I imagine it's way too early for them to even say, right? Like, I imagine those decisions will be made by Microsoft and Blizzard together way down the line. So, I wouldn't expect this for a long time, but it's cool to see they're letting everyone know that they have got a team working on a project completely different, right? And that people at Blizzard are excited about it. So it's always
Yeah,
good to
exactly.
see.
Yeah, pretty exciting stuff. New IPs are always exciting as well. So yeah, very very exciting stuff. Anyways, Crytek announced Crysis 4 is in early development. I saw this tweet and I was like, that's so random to just randomly tweet it out. But I guess that's just the nature of the gaming industry now. Just tweet out gaming news announcements like that. Pretty exciting stuff. I did play a bit of Crysis 2 and 1 on my PC back in the day, like when I built my PC for the first time. And of course, there's like the infamous meme, can your PC run Crysis? Which is funny. But yeah, pretty exciting stuff. When did Crysis 3 come out? Because it's been a while since Crysis 3. Uh,
I
yeah,
think
it's like,
2011,
yeah,
maybe
like I remember I
2012.
used to watch like some YouTubers back in like 2012, like around the Uncharted 3 era, and I'd always see like Uncharted 3 gameplay and Crysis 3 gameplay. So it's like crazy to see that we're finally getting a Crysis 4. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. What'd you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm glad it's finally announced. It's kind of like one of those games that almost felt inevitable from Crytek, but it was just when they'd get around to doing it because Crytek have been through a lot the past sort of decade since Crysis 3. They nearly went under a few times and had to sell studios, and I think Hunt Showdown kind of saved them, right? Like that game completely like took over the world for a while. And did really well for the company. So and I know the Crisis trilogy like remasters have sold quite well. I'm a big fan of the Crisis games, so especially the first one. So I'm really excited to see this finally getting announced. I imagine it's a ways off, like it says in their thing. Like it's basically this and the Blizzard um like announcements are basically more than an announcement. They're just to try and hire people because I know a lot of studios right now are having issues getting new people in, right? And I think these are more just ways of saying, hey, this is what we're working on. We really need people. Just so you know, you're gonna work on Crisis 4, like if you join us. So I think it's more just a way of trying to get more people on the project. But it's cool to see it's getting announced nonetheless. I do hope it's more along the roots of the original game, because that's the one I preferred the most. 2 and 3 were very linear, like story games, whereas the first one was like a big island that you got to explore and do missions on and stuff. So I kind of hope it's more like the first one, a bit more ambitious, like a big open area to explore with cool like physics and stuff. Because yeah, that game's great. I really enjoyed the series and the world and stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one, no matter how long that's gonna take to come out.
I definitely agree. It's like more of like a hiring boost, right? It's a lot easier to get people to work on your team if you're saying like, oh, you're going to be working on Crisis 4, than oh, you're going to work on an unannounced first-person shooter. It's a lot
Yeah.
more enticing. So it makes sense. It makes sense. So yeah, look forward to seeing developments of that in the coming years, I imagine. Anyways, the Steam Deck finally got a new release date, and that is February 25th. So obviously, this was something that I think pre-orders were supposed to go up at the very end of last year, like in December timeframe, but they got pushed back just due to the chip shortages and everything like that. Hard to get the hardware for it, right? Anyways, yeah, February 25th is the new date. The first wave of pre-orders should be going live shortly after that date. So I think they said like once you get like an email from them, you have like 3 days to claim it, or else it goes to the next person online. So yeah, once February 25th hits, depending on like the spot in line that you have according to Steam, check your inbox for that. I'm still personally on the fence of whether or not I want a Steam Deck or not. Like, it definitely does sound very exciting, but like I don't even use my Switch as much as it is. It's still like the main factor that I do want a Steam Deck is that I wouldn't have to buy any games for it, right? You just have your existing library just immediately available on this new mobile platform essentially. But we'll see. Charlie, what are your thoughts on this new release date, and are you still planning on keeping your pre-order?
Yeah, I'm glad they finally got a concrete date because for the past few weeks, I think there's been a lot of like, is it gonna still hit February? Is it gonna be early February? When's it happening? So it's cool that we got a date. It's a shame it's later in the month, but fair enough if that's when they need the date to hit that first wave. Then that's cool. I am planning to keep my pre-order. There's been a few games that I've kind of held off on playing because I want to play them on the Steam Deck. So I am still planning to keep it. Plus, the other kind of reason I was hesitant was making sure that I had the funds when the pre-orders came through, and because it's been a few months since that it was originally meant to happen, I won't have any issues with that now. So like I'm definitely planning to pick it up. I don't know when I'll get mine because from what I've seen, the vast majority of people in like the UK and Europe have been put in Q2. I think are you Q2 as well, Brandon?
I'm Q2, I
For
believe as
yours?
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the vast majority of Europe is in Q2, and then like most of America is Q1 if you got it like early enough. That's mainly just because obviously they're all being manufactured in Washington, and then they're shipping them out, much like the indexes, to their warehouses across the world. So I imagine most of Europe is just they're gonna get the shipments later in the year. So hopefully I get it relatively soon, and the placeholder date will just get pushed forward because that's what happened with my index back when that launched. But it's a matter of waiting and seeing, I guess, right? Just checking the emails and not missing it. I pray that I do not miss that email because I would be so annoyed if I like miss it by a day or something and lose my pre-order. So hopefully it comes through sort of like March, but I wouldn't. Honestly, if the dates are correct, I'm probably not going to get an email for a few months. So, nonetheless, I'm excited to get my hands on it.
Yeah, I hope they give you like some sort of like alert on Steam, because that's like the only way I
Yeah,
can envision right now. Because I don't like I have so many emails for like my school and like my personal, and then I have like my like YouTube email, which is the one I think I have my Steam connected one to. So like, yeah, there's a good chance I'll miss that email if they don't do some sort of like Steam notification. So hopefully that, or at least Wario will like start tweeting out if people receive them. So yeah, we'll move on, I guess. Anyways, PlayStation Plus games for February were announced this week, and it's looking like a decent month. Nothing crazy, but some pretty cool games. So on the PS4 side of things, we're getting UFC 4 and Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. So yeah, some decent titles, I guess, there. And then the PS5 title for the month is Planet Coaster Console Edition. So that's the PS5 look exclusive kind of game for the month. So yeah, pretty decent month, I'd say. Nothing crazy. Yeah, I just think it's decent, I guess. None of the games really interest me. Like, I played a bit of UFC as a kid. Nothing like crazy. I'm not really a big Borderlands person, so I'm not gonna really touch Tiny Tina at the moment. And then Planet Coaster, I feel like that game is like probably best played on PC. So if I did want to play it, I'd play it on PC. But hey, maybe it's one of those games like Kerbal Space Program where I'll play it on like console and then end up picking it up on PC because I liked it. So yeah, Charlie, what are your thoughts on those games, and if you're gonna try any of them out?
yeah. For me, it's kind of a weak month just because there's not really anything there I want to play. I think Tiny Tina's a really dumb one. Like it's such a like a scummy release from Gearbox because obviously it's just the DLC from Borderlands 2, but sold separately. So if you own that on PS4, and you could probably buy the Handsome Collection or whatever for less, like
Wait, that's
secondhand for
included in the
like
Handsome collection?
yeah, it's just a DLC for Borderlands 2.
That's
So
so
it's in
stupid.
there. So like you could probably buy a disc copy of Handsome Collection from like GameStop or Game in the UK for like £5 or something,
Yeah.
and it would be less than buying a month of PS Plus or whatever just to get this. So that's kind of dumb. Um, Planet Coaster, like you, if I was gonna play it, I'd probably play it on PC. But it's not really my kind of thing. I've never been into like the sim games. And then UFC 4, I might give a go. Remember playing a bit of UFC 2 at university, with like housemates and stuff, and it was relatively fun. But I haven't played the games in years, so I have no idea what the fourth one is like. I seem to remember 4 having a lot of weird, like advertising things, if I remember correctly, in the game where ads would pop up and stuff, and they had to like remove them, if I remember correctly, last year. But that might be something else. But I think it was UFC 4. But I might give it a go. We'll see. But this month is relatively weak for me. But I'm not that bothered because February's busy enough as it is, so I don't really need the PS Plus games.
Yeah, no kidding. If we actually did get good games, that'd be kind of worrying. 'Cause then already we have like a lot of games we're paying for that look exciting. So, yeah, yikes. Yeah, kind of a weak month. I don't see myself touching any of those games really, especially now that I found out that the Borderlands thing is just the DLC. That's kind of stupid because I've
Yeah.
owned Handsome Collection since like 2015, so I've owned that for like 6 years or seven almost at this point. So, yeah, okay. We'll move on. I'm gonna group these next three news stories because they're all kind of small. So the first one is Elden Ring is Game Informer's new cover story for the month. So yeah, obviously this happens every single month. They get a spotlight game that they focus on, bunch of interviews, insights. Brief snippets of new gameplay. It's pretty exciting. I'm on the fence if I want to look into this because I'm kind of sold on Elden Ring. Like we're literally, as of like recording, like a month away from the game, like less than that. Kind of don't need to see more. I've already played it and know I'm going to love it. So we'll see if I look into that. But at the moment, that's all I know. But speaking of Elden Ring, both Horizon and Elden Ring have gone gold. So both of these games are releasing somewhat close to each other, right? I think Elden Ring's the 25th and Horizon, I'm forgetting the date. Charlie, do you know that one? It's like the 20
18th.
something. 18th, okay. So exactly
Yeah.
1 week before Elden Ring. So yeah, both of those games gone gold. Obviously, we've talked about this before in the podcast. Essentially, that just means the games are finished and shipped. Going gold doesn't mean as much as it used to because obviously there's day one patches now, so they're still working on the game. But like the disc versions, like the base game that you're gonna get when you go to like a retail store and pick up the game is done and is being certified to Sony essentially. So yeah, pretty exciting times. Those are probably the two games I'm looking forward to the most. Sifu's really up there as well, so it's tough. But definitely now that I'm replaying Horizon and Elden Ring are definitely up there on the games I want to play. Yeah, exciting times. Like, yeah, a lot to play. I think like next week we already get like, is it next week Dying Light 2 already?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy. Oh my god. Yeah, I have midterms next week, so that's fun.
Oof.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, did you have any thoughts on Horizon and Elden Ring going gold or Elden Ring being Game Informer's cover story?
The Game Informer cover story is kind of like to me. I feel like the few like days or whatever before it gets announced, like the people from Game Informer start to hype it up, and I always get let down every month for the past like year. I want to say like they're nowhere near as good as they used to be since they stopped. Or I don't know, do they still do the physical magazine? But like,
They
it's
probably
just
do, but
not
it's not viable. Yeah.
it's just not the same as it used to be. Like it used to be a big thing, right? They'd have these cover stories, and it would be months before a game came out, or they'd have a brand new announcement, right? Like I remember, like Batman Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight, they were both Game Informer announcements, and then they had a whole month of coverage for them, and those were really cool. Whereas now they tend to do stuff like we're gonna do a cover story about the game out next month. Like they did it last month for, this month for Horizon, and now next month is Elden Ring. Like, it's kind of pointless because the game's out so close. I don't really need to see anymore. So yeah, it's kind of weird to me. From what they were hyping up, I was really hoping it was going to be like Gotham Knights or something because it's been a while since we heard anything. And they've been reinforcing that that is this year, and obviously Warner Brothers' connection with Game Informer in the past. I was kind of hoping that would happen, but hey ho, they seem to have moved away from that stuff, so it is what it is. And then Elden Ring and Horizon Going Gold obviously makes a lot of sense, right? Like they're out next month. going gold doesn't really mean as much as it used to, like you said. So it is what it is. But yeah.
Yeah, Gameinform, I haven't really been like keeping up on like a lot of their cover stories. They're like hit or miss. I think like they're all right. Like these ones are cool, I guess, because like they're big games. But yeah, you are right. They are very close to releasing, so it's almost like nothing crazy. I think like the biggest ones they've done in like the past have been like I know Spider-Man got like a lot of information
Yeah. Yeah.
like months before that game came out. They did the same thing with Miles Morales, I believe, and that was exciting as well. And then they used to do like cover story. I think they did one on Breath of the Wild months before that game came out as well, and we got like a bunch of information on that. So those are some of the more exciting ones. But yeah, obviously like stuff like this, not as exciting. Oh yeah, they even did like I think they did one with Days Gone where they like over like half a year before the game came
Oh
out,
yeah,
or like a
that was
year,
like a
they
year
showed.
before.
Yeah, they showed off like an hour of gameplay or something crazy. Like I remember watching that. I was like, I'm surprised they're showing off this much gameplay for like a Sony first party exclusive. So yeah, it's like hit or miss. Like they definitely get some good ones, but yeah, like you said, this one isn't that exciting. But yeah. Anyways, a new story that is pretty, I'd probably say disappointing. Naughty Dog isn't ruling out the possibility of making more Uncharted in the future. I really hope this isn't them being like, yeah, we took that Sony banned Uncharted project and we're gonna work on a new Uncharted. Um, for me, my thought process on this. First of all, I'll give the context to how this came out. Essentially, they're just on like a little news like wagon right now, as like the Nathan or the Lost Legacy collection, whatever you call it, is coming out here on Friday. And essentially, they had an interview, and they're like, we're not closing the door on Nathan Drake, or not Nathan Drake, but like Uncharted as a whole, right? And like obviously you'd want to say that because like you never know the future, right? But I hope this isn't like a tongue in cheek to them working on it, because I saw like a tweet like the other week, and it was something very fanboyish by it was like Sony's biggest games in like the last 15 years, and it was like all Naughty Dog's games. That's like a joke, but like then you look through the list, and like Naughty Dog has only worked on Uncharted or The Last of Us for the last 15 years. Like ever since 2007, they haven't worked on like an IP that wasn't Uncharted or like Last of Us. So like now more than ever, I really want them to do something new. After Factions too, of course. But like yeah, I don't know. I obviously love Uncharted, but we have so many Uncharted games that I just want them to do a new IP, and I hope they're able to do that. Obviously, we know they're working on a new IP in some form, but I just hope they don't spread them out, like spread themselves so thin, because they're already doing the Last of Us remake, which is already revisiting the Last of Us. The Factions project is obviously going to revisit the Last of Us, so I don't think we need to revisit Uncharted as well after these like remasters. So yeah, what'd you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, I definitely think like you're spot on. Like I feel like this is definitely them talking about the Ben Studio project, right? That they kind of took over. Like the way they worded it was very much of, oh, we love Uncharted and we'd definitely be interested in looking at it in the future, rather than, oh yeah, it's we enjoyed the series, maybe one day. Like the way they worded it was very, it sounded like that it's something they've been looking into for a while, which, like you, I personally don't want too much. Like, we got a ton of great Uncharted games. I don't think we need more. Like, I'll always play them, and I'm sure they'll always be great, but I would much rather see the team work on other things. Like you said, a new IP would be great after all these years. Um, as obviously factions too, but I mean that's gonna happen, right? But a new IP especially would be really cool to see, or even like a return to like Jack. Like I don't think Jack will ever come back, or if it does, I don't think it will be with Naughty Dog. But I think it would be cool to see that franchise return. Um, but just something different from Naughty Dog would be really nice to see. But either way, like it's a no brainer that Uncharted will come back at some point, whether it's Naughty Dog or not, who knows? But I mean, Uncharted does too well for Sony for them to just never do another one, right? So
Yeah, I mean, look at the movie. That's enough proof that they see like the potential in the IP, right?
yeah,
So strap yourselves in. We're definitely gonna get more Uncharted. That's for sure. Yeah, Jack would be cool. I definitely am on the side of new IP more than Jack, but Jack would be cool as well. New IP is interesting because I wonder what it'd be. Like, they're definitely going to continue the formula that they have right now of like story driven first, and that's what I want because obviously a story is like you can have an RPG, but if you have a good story as well, that's going to help, and that's what they all care about there at Naughty Dog mostly is telling these cool like worlds and characters, right? But just I think the thing that interests me the most is what kind of like genre it'd be, like not genre I guess, but like time period or like what kind of like locales will be in, like if it will be like Viking or if it will be some sort of apocalyptic. Well, I want to be apocalyptic because that's Last of Us, but yeah, there's just a bunch of areas they could go into. Of course, there's the Savage Starlight, since like obviously a lot of Naughty Dog developers have been like interested in SpaceX, right? Which has been like a rumor for like a decade now. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. Hopefully, we'll hear. I wonder when we'll hear about our new IP. Like, obviously, it'd be after Factions and after the Last of Us remake, but like, yeah, who knows? It could be even like as soon as like the tail end of next year. I think that's still a little bit soon, but like, it's not out of the question. So who knows? Anyways, we'll move on to our next story with Activision. Just more kind of continuing discussions based on obviously the acquisition by Microsoft of them. Essentially, they said that Activision plans to release the next 3 COD games on PlayStation. So that's obviously the COD for this year, the COD for next year, and they're including Warzone 2, which is apparently next year as the next 3 COD games. So I think Jason Schreier, this came from Jason Schreier, he wrote like a piece for Bloomberg just saying that the next 3 games on Call of Duty will be on PlayStation, which is the 3 games I just mentioned. And he said after that, there technically isn't any requirement for it to be on PlayStation anymore. So yeah, kind of just talking about how, even though Phil Spencer tweeted that out, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be coming. It could just be referring to the next few COD games, which I don't know. Who knows? I definitely still am on the side that it makes more sense for them to just keep it multi-platform since, look at Minecraft, like they're just reaping the revenue that game makes on PlayStation and everywhere else. And it made more sense for them. Like, I still think it will come to Game Pass. Like, that's a no-brainer, right? Because they want to boost Game Pass sales. But I definitely think it's still going to stay on PlayStation. But, yeah, just continuing conversations on this stuff. Apparently, actually, this was from Tom Henderson as well. So, both of them reported on that. So, it must be somewhat likely. So, Charlie, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think I touched on it last week, but obviously Sony currently have that exclusivity deal for COD. I think it's a 10-year deal, which would mean it would go up to 2023 because they would have done that when COD Ghost came out, right? So that would be 2013. If this is correct, then this is basically just lining up with that deal. So once their exclusivity ends for DLC, they can just go, okay, we don't have any ties to release on this platform anymore. Like you, I don't think they will just outright stop on PlayStation. I think it would make sense if Xbox do eventually kind of move away from PlayStation and kind of dwindle what support they have for COD on there over the years as Game Pass and Xbox as a platform grows exponentially. But for the time being, I don't see it ever moving away from PlayStation. I think the more interesting one here is Warzone 2. I know Tom has been talking about it kind of recently. I think he's live streaming today, actually, talking about it. But from what he's hearing, it's very early stages, but it's like gonna launch alongside Modern Warfare 2 or whatever the next one is, right? Next year. And it would be basically Warzone for next gen. So it will be like on a newer version of that engine with lots of new mechanics and assets, and it'll be using the hardware of the next gen consoles. So presumably more players, bigger maps, more like unique things going on, like destruction and that kind of thing. Because I know that's something Tom's been talking about, moving into more of the battlefield space, kind of improving on what they were planning to do with Modern Warfare, right? So that sounds cool. To be moving more into that space. But either way, this seems to make a lot of sense. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That would be exciting to see it, like, on next gen. Exciting stuff. And yeah, crazy to think that was a 10-year deal, because like it didn't feel that long ago that COD was like an Xbox exclusivity deal, right, on like the 360.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that we've had like a decade of that being on PlayStation. Even though I know that was early in the PS4 generation, it hasn't felt that long, so that's surprising. Anyways, our last news story is kind of a downer, but also not that surprising. Ubisoft is shutting down Hyper-Scape on April 28th. So this is their battle royale that dropped, I want to say, what was it, like a year and a half ago or something like that? Sometime in the frame of like, I think 2020 or something like that in the summer.
Yeah, I think it was like fall 2020, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they're just shutting it down. Players are probably not playing it as much. I mean, I was talking to Charlie before we started recording, and I'm just like, the multiplayer space is so competitive, and this kind of came out as well. in the midst of a lot of battle royales, and it wasn't that very like it didn't have like for me a Hyper-Scape didn't have like a unique identity to it. Like it felt very fun to play, but like the look of the game looked very bland and prototype ish. Like it didn't have like a personality, if that made sense. But yeah, it's very sad to see. Obviously, it sucks. Surprising because this is like AAA landscape, right? You don't really want this to happen. That's kind of like the worst possible scenario. But yeah, it is what it is. Just the realities. It's just costing them more money than it is coming in, right? So, what did you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, I think it's a shame, but like you said, it's kind of inevitable. I saw this coming a while back. Like it has not had a large player base since launch. To be honest, like it was almost impossible to find matches back when season one first dropped. So it makes a lot of sense. Like you, I don't think it had a clear identity, right? Like there was nothing about it that stood out that in your head when you think Hyperscape, there was no visuals that you thought of except for maybe like France. Like the map was just French buildings. Um, but like the gameplay was really fun. I just don't think they appealed to the right audience. They really tried to lean into the battle royale like streamers and stuff, and it was just not a game for that player base. I think they would have done a much better job if they leaned into like the Quake and Unreal Tournament player base, even though it's a lot smaller than it used to be. If they'd really tried to like hook those people onto the game, I think it would have worked really well. I know they did do some like just normal multiplayer modes, kind of like Quake, and people really enjoyed those that were playing the game. And I just think it would have been a much better route to go down because it was just a very weird battle royale to try and appeal to the mainstream because it was super competitive and played very differently to anything else out there. And I had a lot of fun with it. I just don't think, like I've said, I just don't think they appeal to the right people. So it's a shame that it's getting shut down, but inevitable. So yeah.
Yeah, sucks to see as it always does, but yeah, not surprising. Anyways, that wraps it up for this week. Yeah, that's all the news stories. Decent week in terms of gaming news. We'll join you next week to hopefully talk about what we think about the Uncharted Lost Legacy / Uncharted 4 bundle on PS5. Um, that'll be exciting stuff. And of course, getting into the thick of it with like Dying Light 2 and the rest of the, February releases. So it's about to get crazy here. So yeah, pray for us. Anyways, we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.
See you later.